Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
I was tightening the last screw when the guy inside yelled, "You done yet?" The wind had been cutting through my jacket all morning, and my fingers were stiff as hell. But I just nodded, tested the door one more time, and watched it swing silent and smooth. Not a creak left. Rick came out from behind the counter with a plate. Eggs, hash browns, thick-cut toast still warm. "Payment," he grunted, and walked off. Best damn meal I'd had in a week. My name's Ryan. I'm 38. I used to own a small woodworking business out of Hempstead. Custom builds, big residential contracts, even some commercial jobs stretching all the way into Manhattan. I had a name, a real one. People called me for quality. I had 3 guys under me, a leased workshop, and steady paychecks. That was before life broke me down piece by piece. My dad passed in late 2022. Colon cancer. I stepped back from the business to care for him in those last months. Clients didn't wait. They vanished. The cash dried up faster than I expected. Right after the funeral, Mom had a stroke. She made it, but the bills were unreal. We had no cushion left. I tried to jumpstart the shop again, but with no savings and a busted work truck, I cut a deal with a shady subcontractor. Big mistake. He vanished with the deposit and left me holding the bag. That was the last nail. Now I sleep wherever I can. If it's not my truck, it's tucked behind benches in Eisenhower Park. I keep my tools wrapped up under a tarp. Still got a damn good set. I pick up cleanup shifts or random repairs, whatever I can get. I'm not an addict. I'm not a drunk. Just a guy who got stomped down by 2 straight years of bad timing and worse luck. That diner in Uniondale. I'd been eyeing it for a few days. The front door made this god-awful screech every time someone came in. I watched customers wince, even turn around and walk out. Nobody fixed it. Nobody cared. So I finally walked in. Cold as hell, my boots were cracked. I knew how I looked. Rough, unshaven, no place to be. I waited until the line died down and stepped up. "Your door's costing you business," I said. Rick, the owner, just stared. Not in a friendly way. I tapped the handle. "Screeching like that? Half your customers are bailing. Let me fix it. No charge, just breakfast and coffee." He didn't say anything at first. Looked me over top to bottom. Then he saw the tools in my bag. Gave me a single nod. 45 minutes, he said. I gave him 38. Quick note. Before listening, share in the comments which city or country you're watching from, and let's continue. I was wiping my hands when the bell over the door chimed again. This woman walked in, tall, straight-backed, wrapped in a dark wool coat. Didn't look like she belonged there, but she didn't act like it either. Confident. Clean lines. She stepped over the threshold and paused, testing the door behind her. Open. Closed. Open again. Noticed right away. I caught her eye for a second, but she didn't say a word. Just nodded slightly, like she knew exactly what had changed. Didn't think much of it at the time. I'd done my job, got my meal. Rick even gave me a second coffee to go, but the next morning she was back, and this time she was looking for me. She walked straight up to me like she'd been tracking my footsteps. Same woman from the day before. No makeup this time. Hair pulled back. Fleece jacket and jeans, but still moved like someone used to being listened to. The kind of woman who gave instructions, not suggestions. "You fixed the door, right?" she said, voice crisp, but not cold. I nodded, still chewing on the last of the free toast Rick had tossed me that morning. She didn't wait. And the old lady's crate at the market? That pop-up tent with the busted hinge? I blinked. Yeah. And that kid's bike chain outside the bodega on Jerusalem? She added. I shrugged. He needed help. "I've been watching you," she said, like it wasn't the least bit creepy. "You fix things." Not just well. Right, I leaned against the brick wall, arms crossed. "What do you want?" She hesitated for half a second, then said, "I've got a cabin. Up in Westchester. Belonged to my grandma. It's falling apart. Roof's half shot. Mold in the kitchen. One whole wall might cave in if you lean on it wrong. I raised a brow. Sounds charming. She smirked. You'd get a room. Real food. A cash wage. Nothing fancy, but fair. And no surprises. Why me? I asked. I didn't like it when things came too easy. There's always a catch. Always. Her eyes didn't flinch. Because you do things right, even when nobody's paying attention. That one hit me in the gut. I glanced over at my truck. The windows were fogged from me sleeping in it last night. Forecast was saying mid-30s by the weekend, and I was already down to one pair of clean socks. You got tools? She asked. I nodded slowly. Some. Enough. You want to ride up and see the place? I looked at her car, newer model Subaru, clean but not flashy. Not a trace of hesitation in her voice. She meant it. I didn't trust her. Not fully. But sleeping in my truck through another Long Island winter? That was a hell no. I tossed my tool bag in her trunk. Let's go. We hit the road 20 minutes later. I texted one guy I still kinda knew. Told him I'd be out of range for a few days. No response. Not that I expected one. The drive was quiet for a while. We passed Yonkers, then Mount Kisco. I stared out the window watching the towns fade into trees. She didn't try to fill the silence, which I respected. She just drove like she knew every turn already. Ryan, I finally said, offering my name. She nodded. Lauren. Before we reached the house, she gave me the rundown. It's old. 2 stories. Some insulation, but not great. Power's back on. Plumbing, too. I stocked the kitchen last week. You live up here? I asked. No, just needed to come back for a while. Didn't ask more. Her tone made it clear that was the end of it. We pulled into a gravel driveway that crunched under the tires. Trees thick around the property, orange leaves hanging on for dear life. The house itself looked like something out of a forgotten postcard. Peeling paint, cracked windows, but the bones were good. The kind of place that deserved saving. I stepped out, stretched, and immediately noticed the lean on the western side. Porch had sagged. Could be rot in the joists or water damage under the floorboards. Roofline didn't look terrible, but the gutter on the north end was barely hanging on. She followed me up the steps, keys in hand. You want to walk it? Yeah, I said. I do. Inside smelled like cedar and mildew, the kind of smell that tells stories. Wood paneling along the walls, scuffed hardwood floors, old fixtures, but there was a fireplace, solid stone, and the layout wasn't bad. Kitchen needed gutting, but the structure didn't scream disaster. I went upstairs, tested the railing. Solid. Windows opened, even if they stuck a little. Bathroom pipes groaned when I turned the faucet, but water came out. Rusty, but hot. You said you turned utilities back on? Last week, she said. Figured I'd need them. Wasn't sure when, though I came back downstairs, pulled the crawl space hatch, checked under the floor. Insulation was patchy. Definitely raccoon tracks. Nothing too far gone, though. I'd seen worse. Hell, I'd lived in worse. She was standing by the fireplace when I stepped back in. So? I ran a hand over the mantel. She's got potential. But it's going to be real work. I mean, weeks? She nodded. That's the plan. You want me to what? Rebuild it all? Start with structural. Roof, walls. Make it livable. After that we'll see, I watched her. She didn't talk like most clients. No micromanaging. No asking if I could do this or that for cheaper. Just straight facts. You got a place for me to sleep? 2nd bedroom. Clean sheets, I swear. And food? She pointed to the fridge. Stocked this morning. I exhaled. No checklist left to run through. Just one last question. You sure about me? Are you? She asked back. That stopped me. I looked around the room once more. The way the afternoon light fell across the floor. The faint smell of wood smoke from the last time someone had tried to warm the place. Then I said it. I'm in. I got to work the next morning before the sun even touched the trees. Didn't need an alarm. My body knew when to move. First thing I did was tear up the porch floorboards, one by one. Most were swollen, rotted out underneath. Every time I pried one loose and saw clean soil below, it felt like reclaiming something. After that, I moved to the east side framing. Termites had chewed through half the base plate. I pulled out what I could, scraped the corners, and started cutting fresh lumber to size. It wasn't just labor, it was rhythm, purpose. I hadn't felt that kind of clarity since the shop. Around 9, like clockwork, she showed up. Lauren. Same fleece jacket, jeans, ponytail, and that ceramic mug. No branding, no chips, probably imported and stupid expensive. She parked on the gravel, set her laptop on the porch railing, and tapped away like she was logging stock trades instead of checking email. "You actually working?" I asked once, half joking. "Remote consulting," she said without looking up. "Yeah? On what?" She didn't answer that one. I kept my mouth shut after that. Didn't want to pry too early. But her calls didn't sound like any consultant I'd ever known. They weren't planning meetings or team syncs. I heard words like holdings and position leverage and vote strategy. Real corporate stuff. Serious money stuff. Still, every time I asked for something, wood screws, heavy-duty hangers, specific finish types, she showed up the next day with exactly what I needed. No Amazon packaging, no receipts. Half the time it was high-end, like contractor-grade stuff. Once I mentioned I needed pressure-treated 2x10s for a new stair stringer, and by sundown they were sitting in the driveway. No questions. Just there. One morning, I caught her watching me. Not just casually. Eyes locked on my hands as I laid out joists for the rebuilt deck. She wasn't scrolling or texting, just standing there, arms crossed, soaking it in. "You ever build anything yourself?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "Gingerbread houses. Does that count?" "Only if you used a jigsaw." A minute later, I handed her a pry bar and pointed to the far corner of the porch where the boards were loose but still nailed down. "Go ahead. Let's see what you got." She held the bar like it was made of glass. Elbows tight, grip wrong, no leverage. I walked over, adjusted her hands, leaned beside her. "This isn't a violin," I said. "It's a tool. Get mean with it." She laughed, then tried again. Better. Still awkward, but she was listening. "Teach me," she said. "I want to learn." So I did. Every hour or two, I'd stop and show her something. How to square a frame, how to match grain, how to use a speed square without checking YouTube. She didn't just pretend to care. She took notes, asked good questions. And when she messed up, she didn't pout or make excuses. She cursed once, then did it again until it was right. Still, something didn't line up. She asked too many smart questions too quickly. Knew brands like Festool and Senko, but never mentioned where she heard of them. And the way she carried herself. Straight spine, exact words, the way she paused before speaking, like she was used to controlling rooms. I noticed it again that Friday. She was sitting on an upturned bucket near the porch, typing away. I came up behind her to ask about fast-drying sealants, and her screen was full of charts. Not home project budgets, not invoices. I'm talking Bloomberg-level tickers, deep financials, company names I'd seen in headlines before I stopped reading the news. Vanguard, BlackRock, and one that made me stop breathing for a second. Delaney Capital Group. I'd read an article about them once. Some corporate family dynasty, billion-dollar holdings, ruthless investors, real wolves. I didn't say anything, just made a note of it. She noticed me watching but didn't flinch, just tilted the screen away and asked, "Need something?" "Yeah. 1/4-inch sealant, clear. I'll get it tomorrow." Next day it was sitting in the kitchen. And still, I let it ride. I figured maybe she had money. Maybe she was involved in something big. Maybe the cabin was her way of escaping it. Whatever. I'd been in enough tight spots to know when to shut up and take the win. Then, one afternoon, she leaned over my sawhorses while I was measuring cuts for a new ledger board. She was looking for the mechanical pencil I kept clipped to the side, bent low. Her tote bag slipped off her shoulder and hit the dirt. I bent down to grab it before she did. When I lifted it, a glossy magazine slid halfway out. I froze. It was Forbes, and right there, front and center, was her face. Hair done, eyes sharp, power blazer, the works. The caption underneath read, "Lauren Delaney, the heir who said no to Wall Street." I didn't say a word, didn't ask. Just tucked the magazine back into the bag, placed it on the porch, and went back to my measurements. She didn't bring it up. Neither did I. But that night, while I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, I did the math, the calls, the money, the silence. She wasn't some lost rich girl playing house in the woods. She was that Lauren Delaney, which meant that cabin wasn't just some family heirloom. It was probably a line on a trust document somewhere with more zeros than I'd ever see again. And I didn't know if I liked that, or what it meant for me being there. Next morning, Lauren pulled up late. No laptop, no mug. Just a paper bag in one hand and something in her eyes I hadn't seen before. Not polished, not sharp, just tired. She sat beside me on the front steps while I was sanding down the new porch railing, opened the bag and pulled out 2 sandwiches. Artisan something, stacked with meats I couldn't pronounce and bread that crumbled like pastry when I bit into it. "What the hell is this?" I asked through a mouthful. "Mortadella and fig. It's from a place in Armonk. Don't judge it till you finish it. I can't even hold it without it falling apart. That's how you know it's good." We sat in silence, chewing. Leaves drifted across the porch. The air smelled like damp wood and pine needles. For once, neither of us reached for our tools. She asked me, "What did you do before all this?" I leaned back against the post and took a breath. "I'm 38. Started building when I was 19. Got out of high school and went straight into framing jobs. Learned everything on site. By 27, I had my own business. Custom woodwork, deck builds, finished carpentry. Small crew. Guys I trusted. Ran solid for 10 years. What happened? I stared out at the trees. My dad got sick. I stepped back to take care of him. Thought I could pause things for a few months. But clients don't wait. By the time he passed, I'd lost most of my contracts. Then my mom had a stroke. That wiped out whatever savings I had left. She didn't interrupt, just nodded for me to go on. I tried to bounce back. Took a job on the side with a guy who promised subcontract work. He bailed with the deposit and left me hanging. By then, I was sleeping in my truck, picking up cleanup gigs in Eisenhower Park, patching fences for cash, scraping. She looked at me carefully. No soft face, no sympathy act. I added, "My wife died in 2021. Breast cancer. Fast." We caught it late. Insurance covered barely anything. Rest went on credit cards. I did what I could. Her hand tightened slightly around the sandwich, but she didn't look away. "Her name was Mary," I said. Tougher than I ever was. She used to say we'd move upstate once we made it, buy a little land, build something real. She loved the woods. Lauren glanced toward the tree line. "I think she'd like this place." "I think so too." Neither of us spoke for a minute, just let the wind move around us, like it was giving us space. Around 2 that afternoon, I noticed something off on the western side. The far wall bowed in slightly, not from age, but from something worse. I pulled off a few panels and found rot running deep into the studs. The sheathing crumbled under my hand. I swore under my breath, checked the radar on my phone, storm front incoming, heavy wind, real rain. We had maybe an hour, tops. I called out, "We've got a problem." Lauren came over, crouched beside me, and didn't flinch when I peeled back another layer and showed her the rot. "This whole side's waterlogged. If the wind hits right, this wall's going to fold." She looked at me. "What do we need?" "Braces. Pressure-treated 2x6s. Screws, straps. Maybe temp beams for shoring." She didn't even pause, just pulled out her phone and started dialing. While she talked, I sketched a rough frame plan on the back of a receipt I found in my pocket. 25 minutes later, headlights pulled into the drive. Flatbed from a local lumber yard. The guy didn't ask questions. Just unloaded the stock, got a signature, and disappeared into the rain like he'd done this 100 times. I gave Lauren one look. We move now or we lose this wall. She grabbed the flashlight. I worked from the inside. She followed every call I made. When I needed a clamp, it was in my hand. When I shouted for the cordless, she had it ready. We weren't talking, just operating. She braced. I drove screws. She held the beam while I jacked the joist into place. Rain started coming down hard, roof groaning above us. We could hear the wind pick up in the trees. She slipped once on the floorboards but caught herself without saying a word, kept going, didn't ask to rest, didn't ask what was next, just waited for me to call the next move. At one point, I had to crawl behind the insulation to fasten the top plate, could barely see. My shoulder pressed into cold plywood while water dripped past my ear. Light, I called out. Beam landed right where I needed it, perfect angle. Hold it there, I said. Don't move. She didn't. 40 minutes later, the last support clicked into place and the wall stopped shifting. We stepped back. The frame was ugly, but solid. A temporary fix that would hold through the storm. The wind screamed outside. Trees thrashed against the roof. I turned to tell her we'd made it, and stopped. She stood soaked to the bone, hair dripping into her face, flashlight still in one hand. Her coat was streaked with mud, boots caked, jeans clinging to her legs like she'd walked through a swamp. But her face, she looked alive. Not polished, not calculated, not the woman with her face on a Forbes cover, just a woman in boots who didn't quit. I didn't say it out loud, but in that moment, something shifted. She wasn't just hiding from the city. She was fighting for something real. Same as me. The storm eased sometime before dawn, and by the time I stepped outside, the air had that clean bite to it, like the trees had wrung out the sky. Everything was soaked. The porch glistened under a pale gray light. Lauren was already there, sitting on the top step, legs pulled up, holding a chipped mug of instant coffee like it was holy. She looked up at me like she'd been waiting. You sleep? I asked. A little. You? Enough. I sat down next to her. The wood creaked but held. She passed me a second mug without a word, hot, bitter, and exactly what I needed. After a minute, she asked, "What was your favorite project? Out of everything you've built?" That one stopped me. I didn't usually get asked that. Most people wanted to know if I'd ever built something fancy, like marble counters or curved staircases. She was asking about meaning. There was this old theater in Mineola, I said, built in the 30s. Place had been gutted halfway, almost condemned. Some preservation group got funding and wanted it brought back to life. She turned toward me, elbow on her knee, eyes locked in. Every groove mattered, I said. There were layers of paint over the crown molding. I spent 6 weeks just stripping and recarving the parts we couldn't save. No shortcuts. It had to look exactly like the original, or the permit folks would shut it down. Sounds like hell. It was. But it was the right kind of hell. You knew when it was done, it'd stand. She smiled, like she actually understood what that meant. Not the technical part, but the feeling of it. She sipped her coffee, held it for a moment, then said, "My family's got money. Real estate money. Big. West side of Manhattan. Buildings you've walked past and never looked at twice. But they're ours. My dad's portfolio is full of them. Office space, rentals, mixed use, high-rise luxury." She wasn't bragging. Her tone was too flat for that. She kept going. "The cabin's in a trust. I'm not just a consultant. I've been dodging things. I didn't say anything, just took another sip. Truth was, I already knew. Not the fine print, but the outline. I'd seen the cover of Forbes, heard the calls, read enough between the lines, but hearing her say it, put it in plain terms, it grounded something. "This place was my grandma's," she said. "She used to bring me here as a kid. I'd help her cook, drag firewood inside, chase deer away from the garden. It's the only place that doesn't feel fake. I nodded slowly. I get that. Sometimes what's real isn't about what it's worth. She glanced at me, not like she was weighing me, but like she was seeing something solid. She didn't need me to fix this place. She could have hired a crew and had it redone in a month. But she chose this. The slow build, the mud, the sore muscles, the small wins. We didn't talk more that morning. Just stood up, emptied the mugs, and got back to work. She spent 2 straight hours sanding the old kitchen window frame. The wood was dry and flaked in her hands, but she didn't give up. Worked it gently, layer by layer, until the grain started to show again. I checked in now and then, offered a tip, but mostly let her own it. She was proud of that damn frame. Ran her hand over it when she finished, like it was something she'd built with her own name carved into the side. That afternoon, I brought out rough plans for rebuilding the south stairwell. Dry rot had eaten through 2 of the treads. She asked about weight ratios, footing depth, and whether we'd need riser supports. She wasn't faking it anymore. She actually wanted to understand. I started giving her more than just tasks. I handed her the pencil, showed her how to measure from the center line, taught her the small things nobody teaches unless you've stood on a job site for 20 years. She didn't waste any of it. But that night, long after we'd cleaned up and the generator was humming out back, I stepped into the hallway and heard her voice. She was on the phone in the spare room. Door cracked open. Her tone was different. Clipped, controlled, full executive mode. "No," I said, board vote before the earnings report. "We can't risk dilution right now." Pause. "Yes, I'll be there. I'll have a statement prepared by Friday. But I'm not repeating what we did last quarter. It's not sustainable." Another pause. "I don't care if he's the chairman. He doesn't get to box me out." She ended the call without saying goodbye. I backed up before she noticed me. Walked outside and stood under the porch light, letting the cool air hit my face. It wasn't a side gig, wasn't consulting. She was someone important, deep in it. I couldn't tell if that made me feel like I was building something with her, or just building something she'd already written into her next press release. 2 days after that phone call, she was gone. I walked into the kitchen and found a sticky note on the table, stuck right above the hammer she'd used to sand the window frame. "Emergency in the city. Back soon. Save some work for me. L." That was it. No call, no warning. The place went still without her. Not quiet. Still. The kind of silence that fills a room when someone leaves something unfinished. No ceramic mug on the railing, no playlists echoing off the walls while she scraped old paint. Just me in the house and the list we'd made that now felt heavier than the lumber stacked in the mudroom. I kept working. At first, just the stuff we'd already planned, finishing the deck braces, caulking the window frames. But somewhere around noon, I caught myself cutting a new riser for the back stairs. We hadn't touched that part yet. There was no need. I just needed the sound of something being built. That night after I'd eaten and cleaned up, I got a text from her number. "Can't sleep. Keep thinking about the cabin." I stared at it for a second, thumb hovering, then typed back, "The place misses you too." I meant it more than I expected to. Next morning was uneventful. I did a hardware run, swung by a local yard to pick up new brackets, made a quick stop for groceries, then came back and framed out a fresh entry for the pantry door she'd wanted to redo. No calls, no messages. Then 2 mornings later, I was in the workshop cutting down reclaimed trim boards when I heard the crunch of tires on gravel. I wiped my hands and stepped out. Her car eased into the drive like it belonged there. But she didn't step out in fleece or flannel. She got out wearing heels, short, expensive, useless in mud. Her coat was wool, black, tailored. Her hair was clean and pulled tight. Makeup done. Expression locked in. The same woman I'd seen on that Forbes cover. For a second, I thought she'd gotten lost on the way to a press event. She looked around, then met my eyes. "Can we sit inside?" We went into the kitchen. She didn't take her coat off. I leaned against the counter. "Emergency handled?" She nodded once. Handled. Silence stretched. She glanced at the cabinets, the ones we'd talked about refinishing, then back at me. I should have told you sooner. I crossed my arms. What exactly? That I'm your charity case? Her eyes narrowed like I'd slapped her. No, she said. That I needed this place as badly as you did. That maybe. I needed you. I wanted to snap back. I should have snapped back. But something in her voice hit different. It wasn't polished, wasn't controlled. She was trying to be real, and she was doing a damn clumsy job of it. You walked in here like a stranger, I said. Acted like you were just passing through. And the whole time you were, what? Dodging billion-dollar board meetings and writing press releases on the sly? She looked down at her hands. Yes, and no, you got money. Connections. A last name that opens doors. You could have hired anyone. I didn't want anyone, she said. I wanted someone who built things the right way. Someone who didn't care who I was, who wouldn't lie to impress me or pretend to understand. Someone who still gave a damn when nobody was watching. I stared at her. The coat, the heels, the mask. You were one of them, I said. Wall Street types. Corporate sharks. The kind of people who wouldn't blink walking past someone like me on the sidewalk. I still am, she said, voice flat. But I didn't lie to hurt you. I lied to escape them. She walked over and touched the window frame she'd sanded. Her hand lingered there, fingers tracing the grain like it held something sacred. I came up here because I couldn't breathe anymore. I was sick of fighting for board votes and begging billionaires to stop acting like children. I needed something real. And I was what? Your therapy? No, she said, louder now. You were the first person in years who didn't want anything from me, who didn't expect me to fix a damn thing I couldn't stand behind. I exhaled. The room was warm, but something in me felt cold. Not angry, just unsettled. You sanded one window, I said. You helped brace one wall. That doesn't erase who you are. I know, she said, but it reminded me who I wasn't, who I didn't want to be anymore. I looked past her to the trees swaying outside the kitchen window. There was a beam I'd left half-measured out there, still needed to be cut and notched before noon. You coming back to finish the work? I asked. She let out the faintest laugh. Only if you'll let me. I didn't smile. Not yet. But I nodded. Boots next time. No heels. Deal. She didn't try to hug me. Didn't get dramatic. Just pulled her coat off, rolled up her sleeves, and went out to the truck to grab her gloves. 10 minutes later, we were in the mudroom talking about beam spacing. Truth was, I couldn't stay mad. She might have lied, but she'd earned her place in the dust and grit just like I had. By nightfall, the clouds were practically growling. Heavy sky, real weight to it. Wind had picked up so fast I didn't even finish eating. I dropped the fork, went straight outside to check the south slope. Lauren followed me out, zipping up her jacket on the fly. We circled around the back and spotted it right away. Water pooling in the low ground near the foundation. Fast. Way too fast. The soil was already soft, and runoff was carving a path straight toward the crawl space. I didn't hesitate. Trench. Now she didn't ask questions. Just jogged back to the shed, came back with 2 shovels, handed me one, and started digging like the boots on her feet weren't worth more than my whole truck. Rain started light, cold, sharp. Within minutes it was full-on sheets. Her hair was plastered to her face, but she kept swinging that shovel like it owed her something. The mud turned slick. My shoulders started to lock up. I adjusted my grip and kept going. We weren't just digging. We were racing the water. I marked a line straight out from the corner of the house, about 8 feet down slope. That's where the real damage would hit if the runoff didn't break direction. I called out, "Gravel!" from the bucket in the shed. She sprinted like hell and came back hauling a 5-gallon bucket full of crushed stone, dumped it without spilling a scoop. I barely looked up. Again. We widened the trench and packed the base. I dug down and hit softer ground, spongy. That meant washout, not just a puddle. The earth had started to move. I slammed the shovel into the muck and cursed. We got a pier footing losing support. She wiped her face, eyes wild but focused. Where? Southwest corner. Gotta brace it or the porch drops. We dropped tools and scrambled under the deck. The crawl space was tight, dark, already filling at the low point. I grabbed the portable jack and a short beam, motioned for her to hold the flashlight steady. My back was half in mud, half in water. You see the level? I asked, pointing to the one clipped to the beam above. She leaned in and nodded. Off, tilted toward the house. Exactly. We lose that corner. It'll twist the frame. We're jacking it. Slow. We moved in rhythm. I wedged the cribbing. She packed gravel. I slid the jack into place and started turning. Wood creaked. The whole structure groaned like it wasn't sure it wanted to stay upright. More gravel, I said. Tight. Make it hold. She packed it by hand this time. Mud caked her wrists. She didn't care. The rain didn't let up. The ground under us churned with every step, but we didn't stop. I had to adjust the beam twice. First time because the jack slipped. Second because the footing shifted under pressure. She held the light, adjusted it perfectly each time. I didn't have to tell her where to aim anymore. She just knew. When I finally said, "Level's holding," she let out a breath like she'd been underwater. "Pump?" she asked, voice rough. "In the shed," I said. "Plug into the back wall." She took off without another word. By the time I crawled out, she had the pump running and the trench flowing like a damn riverbed. Water shot down the line we dug and out into the woods. She stood beside it, soaked, mud from her knees to her ankles. I could barely see her eyes through the rain, but her shoulders didn't sag. She wasn't done yet. The wind howled through the trees like something alive, but the cabin stood still. When the worst passed, when the rain finally pulled back and the wind went from violent to just loud, we walked into the kitchen like we'd just come in from war. I peeled off my jacket, tossed it near the door. She kicked her boots off and leaned against the counter, breathing hard. Water dripped from her sleeves onto the floor. The lights flickered once but held. We didn't speak right away, not because there was nothing to say, just because silence felt earned, like we had to respect it. Then she said it, quiet but sure. I've never felt more alive than I did out there. I turned, met her eyes. That's because, for once, I said, none of this was pretend, no boardrooms, no press, just us. She smiled, not a flashy grin, just a slow, real thing that came from deep down. And I swear, in that moment, all the noise she brought with her, the money, the lies, the city, it didn't matter. She showed up, dug through mud, held the beam steady, matched me call for call. That wasn't fake. And if it was, then hell, I didn't want real. The storm cleared, but something between us stayed charged. Not tension, exactly, but weight. The kind that settles in after shared work, like we'd built something invisible in the dirt while trying to save the porch. Next morning I found her already out back, a hammer in one hand and a notepad in the other. Her laptop was open on the sawhorse, screen split between emails and a sketch of the side shed we were planning to convert into storage. She was working both angles at once, the world she came from and the one she was choosing now. She didn't stop when I stepped out, just looked up and said, "We need more galvanized brackets." I counted wrong. I nodded and started my day. Over the next few days, she kept showing up like that, not just physically, but fully in it. She still took calls, still checked her inbox like her job depended on it, but now the laptop shared space with screws, pencils, and sawdust. She'd put someone on mute mid-meeting to measure trim. She stopped wearing gloves just because they slowed her down with sanding. We talked more, sometimes while working, sometimes late over bad coffee and cold leftovers. She told me stories about her dad. Hard man, legacy first, the kind of guy who measured value in square footage and ROI. She said she used to believe in all of it, until the day she walked into a shareholders meeting and realized nobody in the room could hold a damn wrench. I told her about the apprentices I used to train back in the shop, kids who came in knowing nothing but hungry to learn. I told her about one kid, Kenny, who couldn't hammer straight on day one but 2 years later was running his own crew. Real work gives a man his spine, I said. She didn't argue. One afternoon, while we were laying out spacing for the new joist ties, she paused and wiped her face with her sleeve. "What if we didn't stop here?" she asked. I looked up. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what if we turned this place into something bigger? A program, hands-on restoration courses, real apprenticeships, not just a cabin rebuild, but a full site, maybe even temporary housing for guys like you." She caught herself. "I didn't mean, I know what you meant," I said. "You're not wrong." She exhaled. "We could teach real skills. Construction, finish carpentry, electrical basics, give people something they can carry, something lasting." She didn't sound like she was pitching a business. She sounded like someone who'd finally figured out what she actually wanted to leave behind. I didn't answer right away. That evening I walked deep into the woods behind the cabin, not to clear my head, just to let it settle. I hadn't thought about legacy in a long time. I'd been too busy surviving, too busy staying one step ahead of total collapse. But now she was talking about building a future, not just for herself, but for others, for people like me, for the guys I used to train, for the version of me that barely made it through last winter in a truck with no heat. I stood there thinking about Mary, about how she used to talk about having land, about opening the shop to kids with nowhere to go. She believed in building lives, not just things. I used to believe it too. I walked back just before dark. Lauren was in the kitchen, tracing something out on graph paper with a red pencil and a ruler that didn't belong in a drafting room. The stove light cast long shadows across her shoulders. She looked up when I walked in. "If we do this," I said, "it's not your name on the door." She didn't even blink. "Then we call it the Williams Center," she said, "for her." It took me a second to speak. "That's not just a name to me." "I know." We stood there for a beat. Not business partners, not co-workers, just two people finally agreeing on something that mattered. That night we sat at the kitchen table with a bottle of cheap bourbon and started drawing real plans. Pencil sketches on the backs of receipts, frame outlines, classroom space, workshop layout, bunk rooms in the attic, a shared tool shed with labeled bins. She even jotted down possible grant options, scribbling them between diagrams. She was serious, and so was I. She came back the following Tuesday with a manila folder and a look in her eyes like this time it was permanent. No small talk, no circling. She placed the papers on the table between us and said, "Legal partnership, equal stake, no catch." No charity. I didn't even reach for it yet. Just looked at her. "You sure about this?" "I've never been more sure of anything," she said. "You bring the skill. I bring the capital. Together, we make something that matters." It wasn't just talk. Her name was on the signature line right next to mine. No backdoor clauses, no override power. Just black ink and 50-50. I signed it without blinking. After that, everything moved faster, but not rushed. Just alive. We salvaged the big oak that had gone down in the last storm. Took 2 days to mill it clean. She stood next to me while I ran the planer, learning the rhythm. That wood became benches for the classroom wing we were building off the back of the main cabin. I cut. She sanded. I braced. She leveled. I'd glance over and see her correcting her own angles, adjusting her stance like someone who'd actually been trained. One afternoon we were outside ripping boards when a kid named Devante rolled up. Local, maybe 20. Quiet, but curious. Said he'd heard about what we were doing from his uncle. Asked if we needed help. I was about to brush him off, but Lauren beat me to it. "You know how to use a plane?" she asked. He shrugged. "Not really." She grinned and grabbed the one she'd just sharpened. "Come here. I'll show you." I watched her lay it down on the work table, press his hands to the grip, and guide him through the first pass. Her posture, her tone. It was real. She didn't fake it. Didn't just talk like she cared. She did care. This wasn't a hobby anymore. Word spread, faster than we expected. Retired guys started showing up. A few from the nearby VFW hall. Some just dropped off old tools, but others stuck around. Asked questions. Offered to teach drywall, electric, finish painting. One guy, Carl, old school mason, said he'd come by twice a week to train whoever wanted to learn brickwork. Rick, the diner owner back in Uniondale, somehow caught wind of it and called me out of nowhere. "You got something real going on up there," he said. "I'll cater the damn opening myself." Just say the word, Lauren laughed when I told her. "You fixed his squeaky door. Now he's all in." "Guess I'm a man of influence," I said, passing her the level. She was better now, not just confident with tools, but thoughtful. Knew when to push and when to step back. She made a full pot of coffee each morning that didn't taste like drain cleaner. She actually tested the batch before handing me a mug. One night, we were sitting out on the porch after the crew left. Just the two of us, covered in dust and paint chips, watching the sun melt behind the trees. She turned to me, pulled her knees up onto the bench and said, "I want to live here." I didn't react. "I mean really live here," she added. "Run the business from this porch if I have to." "I don't want to go back." I didn't say anything. Just reached over and handed her the mug she'd brewed. She took a sip, winced, then laughed. "Still not great," she said. "But better," I replied. "That counts." We sat like that for a while. No noise, no rush. Just two people watching the work we'd built take root. The banner stretched clean across the front porch beam. The Mary Williams Restoration Center. Soft opening. I never thought I'd see my wife's name on a building, especially not one like this. The lot was full. Trucks, local news vans, 3 guys from the mayor's office, a mix of suits, neighbors, a couple familiar faces from town, and a few of our volunteers looking half proud, half stunned. Lauren stood at the edge of the porch in black jeans and work boots, clipboard in one hand, talking to a reporter from some regional magazine like she'd been doing this her whole life. She called everyone together with one loud clap and stepped onto the small stage we built from salvaged flooring. "I'm not going to give you a long speech," she said, "but I'll tell you the truth. This cabin saved me. Not the lumber, not the nails, but the work, the rhythm, the dirt under my fingernails, and a man who showed up with a toolbox and no reason to believe in anyone anymore." She paused. The wind caught her hair, but she didn't move. "I didn't come here to start a nonprofit," she went on. "I came to disappear. And instead, I found a purpose. This place helped rebuild us both. Now it's open for the next person who needs a second shot." Applause rolled through the porch like thunder on wood. She stepped down, nodded at me. My turn. I didn't write anything down, didn't rehearse. I just stepped forward and said what I knew. "Every piece of wood in this building," I said, "was touched by someone who needed a second chance. That's what this place is, for nothing fancy. Just the truth." We led the first tour together. Lauren pointed out every small feature she'd helped restore. The newel posts she stripped by hand, the window sashes she rebalanced, the workshop cabinets built from the oak we milled together. People listened. Some nodded. Others took pictures. One guy from the Trades Council asked how soon we'd be accepting new applicants. Another woman said her nephew just got out of county and needed direction. It was working. It wasn't just an idea anymore. Later, once the guests started thinning out and the cameras stopped clicking, we sat on the porch steps like we used to, just the two of us. Coffee mugs in hand. Tools cleaned and lined up for tomorrow. Curriculum printed and stacked in folders on the dining table. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows through the trees. Lauren looked out toward the parking lot, watching 2 of our new students unload toolboxes from a donated van. One kid dropped his hammer, laughed, and picked it up without shame. She turned to me. "You think we can pull this off?" she asked. I didn't look at her right away. Just watched those 2 young guys wheel their crates up the path we'd carved ourselves months ago. before anyone believed this place could mean something. "We already did," I said. She didn't speak, just reached for my hand, the same hand that taught her to hold a pry bar right. I took it without thinking. Her palm was rough now, same kind of grit mine carried. 2 sets of calloused hands, 1 plan. "Let's get to work," I said. "After rock bottom, would you trust a stranger and start over? If yes, share how tough the comeback was, who helped, whom you helped. Like and subscribe, huge for us, 1 click."
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.